Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my 2022 Porsche 708 GT4. After about years of fanboying over one, man, I've been fanboying over Porsche ever since I was like 5 years old, and about 7 months of when I was interested until it's finally here in my possession. Yeah, it's finally here, and huge thanks to Redwood City Porsche for giving me a good deal and allowing me to spec the car and giving me an allocation. I mean, that's a big one. Shout out to David Saucedo, Tony, and Ray. And yeah, I picked up this car about a month ago. I just haven't gone around to recording any videos because I've been busy busy with work and also busy driving this car. Let's see here, a month and a week. It has around 1,300 miles on it. So I thought I'll just, record a video of my first impressions and what I like, what I don't like about the car, some problems I've actually had with the car. I thought I'll let some of y'all know. So yeah, let's get started. So going back a bit, I picked up this car around June 7th. Drove it around for around a couple weeks without PPF. So I've mainly just been driving around in some back roads around town, avoiding highways, and then I think it was this end of the second week or the third week, I finally got a PPF from OC Detailing in Fremont. Shout out Joe and the team. They did an absolutely amazing job. Like here, you can't even tell it's PPF'd. Like, they take apart everything. They take apart the bumpers, the headlights. I even see them take apart the rear window here, the window trimming. They do everything just to tuck in the PPF. Like you literally can't tell that's on here unless you're really looking for it. And you kind of see they tuck in everything as well right over here. I don't know if you guys are able to see that, the line. Yeah, you have to really be looking for it in order to find it. So yeah, that's the first thing I've done to the car. Other than that, I'm not sure the car really needs anything, but I'll get to that in a bit. So my first impressions of the car when I picked it up about a month ago. Before I picked up the car, I was actually worried about it being too raw. Like, I've seen some videos, I've seen, I've read Rattles threads and all that stuff. And yeah, I was really worried, like, can I daily this car? I mean, at the moment, I don't really have a daily commute. But in the future, like, will I be able to daily this car? Because, again, it's my only car. And when I started driving it, I found that the clutch in the steering was very light. Like, my brother has a Civic Type R. I would say just a tad bit heavier, the clutch, than the Civic Type R. Even the steering was lighter. So I quite like that because it shows that it's, it's really easy to drive. It doesn't take a toll on you. Unlike the 981 GT4, I've driven it on track, and the steering and the clutch was actually a lot heavier than this generation. This generation definitely feels more refined. And the other thing I worried about was the ride. I thought it would be too stiff from all the old Rattles people saying, it hurts my back and, it's too shaky. But, I mean, from my experience, the ride is actually very, very compliant. It has the regular comfort mode and it has the stiff mode. In the regular mode, it's quite soft. It doesn't pogo. Yeah, it's totally dailyable. I mean, maybe it's the cars I've owned in the past because all the cars I've really owned, BRZ, Focus RS, Focus ST, they're all kind of, enthusiast cars, I should say. I've never really owned like a Camry or a Lexus, something that's just made for commuting. So maybe take what I say with a grain of salt, but yeah, it's super dailyable. That was my first impressions. I was actually pretty happy with that. And yeah, the ride is so compliant. Even when I put on the sport chassis mode, I can't, like, definitely I could tell from the steering. The steering feels a little bit heavier and the car feels a little bit more planted, but it doesn't feel, that car coming by, that's fine. It doesn't feel, sometimes I don't even know if I'm in that mode. Like, I have to check like 2-3 times, like, oh, am I in the stiff suspension mode? So yeah, if y'all are thinking of dailying a GT4, there's absolutely no problem with it. Maybe go for the comfort seats, either the 4-way sports seats or the 18-way seats, which I've gone over here, which in my opinion hold me in very well. yeah, that was one of my first impressions of the car. So the second thing I want to talk about is the sound system. I got the Bose audio, as you can see. I think it's 10 speakers, 545 watts with a subwoofer. And originally I had an order placed on the Spider. And the main reason why I originally had a Spider was because I had Bromaster. And I was a bit worried about, the Bose audio in the GT4. Again, looking at Rattles, people say it's crap, blah, blah, blah. So, I tried it out in some of the Caymans, the base Cayman S, and I thought the Bose sounded really good. Definitely better than any car I've owned in the past, which again, I haven't really owned like a full-on luxury car, so take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, I'm actually very pleasant. I'm actually pleasantly surprised with the sound system. Some people said that the sound insulation is terrible in this car. It's not. I had a BRZ in the past that was far worse. I would say, yeah, you have to crank up the music a bit, but it's not like I couldn't hear the music, for example. So that was my second, second first impressions. I don't know. That was that was another like breather I got. Knowing that, okay, the sound system is great, the sound insulation is great. Again, it's super dailyable. I haven't driven a GTS 4-liter. I think, I have a, my dad's friend has a GTS 4-liter, so maybe I'll make a video comparing the two. But yeah, I think this, if you're curious about, oh, can I daily a GT4? You totally can. So the third thing is the engine. Now this is as close as I could really get to the engine. For your information, I think this is oil right here. Let's find out. Oh no, that's coolant. And then oil is on, let me just close that, make sure it's closed. There we go. Oil is on this side. So that's how you put in the oil and the coolant. And if you want to check the level of your oil, this car has an electronic dipstick, which I've never used before, but seems interesting. But yeah, the engine. When you look at the specs online, it may seem pretty underwhelming, $100,000 plus for 400 horsepower, well, 414 horsepower to be exact, and around 320 foot-pounds of torque. But one thing about this car is it's all about the sum of its parts. It's all about how it comes together. And let me tell you, this car really pulls to redline. Like the power, the torque it has. I mean, I like the power of this car. It doesn't feel like it's too slow, where you're not really enjoying it. But it's not too fast where you have to be into triple-digit speeds in order to enjoy it. You can enjoy it, in, let's just say, like a little bit over speed limit, especially with the manual transmission, which I'll get into later. But yeah, one thing that I haven't seen in any videos or forums is just the intake noise of this car. Oh my god. After 5,000 RPMs, it just howls and screams inside the car. One of my friends, he says it reminds him of an E46 CSL, which, I'll take that as a compliment. And yeah, so, yeah, I mean, when you hear the exhaust noise, it may not be loud, especially compared to the previous generation. But I would say the intake noise, it doesn't even match the previous generation. That's definitely one place where they've improved. Now, the other thing I really liked is the shifter. So, let's get inside the car real quick. Sneak peek of some of the options. I'll definitely make a video going over the spec of the car and why I decided to go for certain options and why I decided not to go for certain options. But let's close the door right here. And the doors, on a side note, they feel a lot more solid compared to the previous generations. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's different latch that Porsche uses. But anyways, yeah, the shifter. It is just... oh my god, it's so good. I mean, this is the best OEM shifter I've ever felt. I'm not sure how Lotuses are. My brother has a Civic Type R, so I would say that comes close. But one thing I really like is just the mechanical feel you get, especially when you're driving the car. You really feel, the linkage and everything. And it almost feels like, my dad says it almost feels like a gated shifter. So... yeah, that's that. And at first I thought, oh, maybe it could use a heavier knob. But the more I drove it, the more I understood why Porsche didn't put a heavier knob, because you really feel you know, you really feel the, you know, the shifts, you know what I mean? And with a heavier knob, like, yeah, maybe it would require less work to go into gear, and you know, it'll slide into gear better. But I think the point of this transmission is, you know, you're feeling, it's all about the feel. You know, you're putting it in yourself. You're feeling what the car is doing. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna keep the shifter stock, especially the shift knob stock. I don't think it really needs an aftermarket shifter. I mean, this car doesn't really need many mods, if I'm being honest. But you know, I'll get to that later. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the handling of this car, especially when I click this button. I don't have the key in, but yeah, you can't even get entry level and driving a GT4. I'll complain about that later. But the way this car handles, oh my god, like I don't even think I'm touching the limits of the car on the public streets, especially on these type of roads. I mean, frankly, I don't want to, because that's a good way of you know, riding off the car. But you know, it just feels so tight and planted. Let me get out the car. It's getting pretty hot. Yeah, as I was saying, it feels really tight and planted, and that's one thing that I don't know what car comes close for this price range. Like the handling of the car, it feels so hunkered down and low. I've never had like a poop my pants moment, like in a corner where, you know, I feel like I've like understeered or oversteered. It is just so well balanced. You know, some of the roads over there, they're quite what do you call them? Quite dusty. So the rear end moves around a bit, and it's so controllable. I mean, it is just so well balanced. I haven't driven a better balanced car before. So yeah, that's one thing about the handling. And the other thing is, in the stiff suspension mode, the sport chassis mode that they like to call it, it is actually very, very compliant. It doesn't feel like I'm being tousled around or anything. Like in the Focus RS, I had a 2018 Red Edition, and that thing, especially in the stiff suspension mode, it was really stiff. Like it had a pogo effect. So you know, you hit a bump and it just kind of like, you know, it takes time for it to settle. But this car, it is so compliant. Like, again, as I said beforehand, I couldn't even tell if I'm in the sports suspension mode or not. So yeah, that's another impression I've had in the car, driving it in these canyon roads. All right, so now we are all car guys. I mean, I assume the people watching this are car guys. You know, one thing I know about car guys is we love to tinker things. So what exactly needs to be tinkered from this car? If I'm being honest with you, not many. The first thing I want to do is the exhaust is quite underwhelming. One thing I found is, so there's an exhaust button, PSE, which is right over there. I think you can see it underneath the lock button. That opens up the valves, but at idle, yeah, it opens up the valves at idle. But right when you set off between 1,000 and I would say like 3,800 RPM, the valves close. So yeah, so the button doesn't really do much besides open the valves at lower RPMs, which well, not even lower RPMs, basically at idle. Because after 4,000, 3,800 RPMs, the valves open up itself. And not only that, but, you know, I'll insert a video of me reversing. You can hear the valves say open, close, open, close. And yeah, here, I'll play the video now. Yeah, as I was saying, you could tell when the valves open and close, and it's really annoying. So I'm going to try a series of mods to take care of that and help with the exhaust note. Again, I think that the previous generation of this car, the 981 GT4, that sounds incredible. And the one thing I like about that button is, I mean, that car kind of had the same problem, but it sounded better. Unlike the older Porsches, like my dad's 2013 911, when you click the PSC button, the valves are open all the time. There's no like interference with the valves at any other RPMs. But regardless, yeah, so the first thing I'm going to do is get a valve controller. I already placed an order on a Soul valve controller, and I'll see how that sounds. I think it will sound better. If not, then I'll probably get some over axle pipes from Soul as well. I think you can see right over there, that is the OPF filters. Fun fact, in the US cars, or sorry, in the European cars, when you remove the OPF filters, it triggers a check engine light because they have, Porsche has some sensors in those cars for the OPF filters. But in the US cars, I assume the North American cars, or basically everywhere else besides Europe, there are no sensors for that. So when you remove the OPF pipes, it doesn't trigger a check engine light. But I'll double check that with my service advisor and see if that doesn't void my warranty. So yeah, I'll get the valves first and then probably overaxle pipes later down the line. The second thing I'll probably take care of next, according to people online, is the alignment. And from what I've heard and seen and read, is that on the track, the car tends to understeer at the limits. So I assume an alignment will take care of that. Some people even go out and change the wheels in order to change their, you know, the wheel size and the tire size. So yeah, before I track it, I'll probably dial in the alignment, go to a shop nearby. Here you have to get like rear toe links, and then do something in the front. I'm not sure. I haven't done much research. But yeah, that's probably going to be the second thing I'm going to do. And the third thing I'm going to do is probably change the pads and fluid. So I have a friend, he has a 2022 Shark Blue 718 GT4, and he took it to Laguna Seca nearby, and he faded the OEM pads, and yeah, I find that interesting. Granted, he's probably a much faster, not probably, he's a much faster driver than me, but you know, again, my dad has a 911 Carrera 4S, and let's just say he's a very heavy braker, and he runs the stock pads and, you know, even rotors, and, you know, they held up fine. And from what I've heard is that Porsche removed a certain metal from the brake pads because it's like harmful for fish or something. I don't know. So these new cars, they don't really last as long, the brake pads on track, compared to the previous cars. So yeah, that's probably one thing I'm going to change, the brake pads. I'll probably try doing it myself. We'll see how that goes. And while I'm at it, I'll probably change the brake fluid as well. Maybe Castrol SRF or endless fluid. I don't know. I'll think about it when the time comes. But yeah, that's the only thing I think that the car really needs. Well, needs is kind of a stretch. It is perfect the way it is. But those are the plans I have for the car for the future. Not many things, but you know, just thought I'll tell y'all anyways. Now, if you're familiar with Porsche reliability, it's usually pretty good. My dad had his 911 for 10 years. He drives it very hard, dailies it, tracks it, hasn't really had any major issues. But I've had some issues with this car during my first 1,000 miles. Now, it is to be expected because it is a brand new car. I assume that, you know, there are some, what do you call it, things that need to be settled in before, okay, car going by. Some things that need to be settled in during the first, you know, couple thousand miles. So the first thing is, I've had some rattles with this car. The first one I noticed is in the rear. So the rear, like, it almost feels like the rear latch is loose, especially on bumpy roads. Kind of like, you know, it makes like a, you know, it's just like a ticking sound. So my suspicion is it's a rear latch. Now, the second problem I've had is actually this glass right here. Especially when I go over speed bumps and stuff, it doesn't feel settled. It kind of feels like it's moving a bit. So when I bring it into the dealership for my first oil change, I'll definitely have them take a look at that. Now, the third problem I've had is actually the AC. Weirdly enough, let me zoom into the AC module over there. Weirdly enough, there were a couple times where it just didn't want to blow cold air. So yeah, it took like a bit for the first time. I think it took like 5-10 minutes until it started blowing cold air. And then the second time, I just restarted the car and it started blowing cold air again. So yeah, I'll get that taken a look at as well. And the third weird thing is I got a check engine light this morning, actually. I'm not sure what it's for. I'll put a picture of it up right now. And yeah, I mean, the weird thing is it showed up on the little computer over there, where it says GT4 and the time. But it didn't show up on the tach. Like, usually, right by the 1 or 2, there's like a check engine light, like an actual light. So I restarted the car a couple times, and, you know, I've driven it hard around here, and it hasn't really had any issues. So I'll definitely get that taken. You know, I'll get that looked at as well. All right, hey, it's me from the future. So the check engine light actually came back. This time it's on the tach, and it's over there. Actually, let me just restart the car so you can see what it says. Right there, engine control fault, consult the workshop, driving permitted. So I plugged in the OBD2 reader, and it said, it basically gave me a couple codes, which I'll put on the screen right now. And then I looked on Rattles, and I found that a few people with the 2022 Caymans, whether it's the GT4, GTS, or Spider, actually have this problem. And remember I said beforehand that the AC went out a couple times, like it stopped blowing cold air? Yeah, it turns out that that's a related problem, and it seems that it might be a radiator fan. So yeah, this one isn't going away no matter how many starts I do. As you can tell, I started, you know, I turned it off and started back on. So yeah, I'm taking it on Monday, and I'll let y'all know what they say. You know, it's been a solid, fun car, and honestly, I can't be happier. This is you know, driving on these roads, the intake noise, how comfortable it is, the sound system, the way it handles, the way it looks especially. I mean, this thing is just the ultimate package. I don't know what to go from here. My goal is to keep this car for as long as possible. And, you know, the way I see it is, you know, I've driven a GT3. Granted, it was just around the block, and I've sat in multiple GT3s, but I found that this car is around, you know, maybe 80% of a GT3 in terms of maybe even 90% of a GT3 in terms of driving experience for like $50,000 less. So I think in that case it's kind of a bargain. But again, you know, when you look at performance, there are definitely faster cars out there. One that comes into mind is, you know, ZL1 1LE, maybe GT500 as well. But again, you don't buy this car to you know, to set lap records. I mean, it is a fast car and you can set lap records, but you know, you buy it for the driving experience. And at the moment, I can't really find anything that comes close that I've driven personally. Maybe one thing I could think of is maybe a Lotus, but the thing about a Lotus is I'm not too sure about the reliability, and you know, it's not as well rounded as this car in terms of comfort and you know, speed, handling. I will say a Lotus definitely handles better from what I've read, but yeah, that's those are my first impressions. Definitely stay tuned for more videos. I'll do a POV video. I'll compare it to a bunch of other cars. You know, I have friends with previous gen GT4s, 350s, you know, what people might cross shop this car with. I'll do some reviews of other cars as well. So yeah, stay subscribed. I'll do more videos about this car, my ownership experience. Next video will probably be like a spec talk, like why I chose, you know, black calipers, or, you know, I'll go through the whole options of this car. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you all for watching. Subscribe, like this video, and stay safe.